watch out, I'm telling you why. The FAA doubts that Santa will fly. Santa Claus is coming by ground.
Uh-oh, the TSA got him?
His bags were too weird. They're posting his bonds. They're checking his beard. He's getting the wand. Santa isn't leaving the ground. He'd take a flight if he could. They thought his suit looked weird. They profiled him as bad, not good, just because of his long beard. They'll post a reward, 'cause last time he flew, he tried to board his sleigh with shampoo. TSA does not like his ilk. He might bring on some cookies and milk.
There you go. Look out, Santa! The TSA will get you. Oh, there's a lot of good people who work at the TSA. I got to say that. I've never had a run-in or problem with them of any consequence, and some of them have been very nice to me over the years. But it's so funny to think of Santa getting. Ah, you got shampoo. All right, Nick Kristof in today's New York Times kicks this topic off by saying, forget about the Department of Agriculture. We need to have, at a cabinet level, the Secretary of Food, because everybody eats food, and the food we're eating is poisoning us. This is, in a very real way, for Americans, even though it's not portrayed this way, because you've got a multi-trillion-dollar, in all probability, but certainly a multi-hundred-billion-dollar food industry. Susan says $600 billion a year food industry that is pumping all this money into making sure that, A, we're buying their products, and B, that the news media is not reporting on their products because the news media carries their advertising. And I'll tell you, back in the 70s, I was a partner, I guess, more or less, in an ad agency with a good dear friend of mine, Terry O'Connor, and our largest client was one of America's largest food companies. Now, we were one of their smaller suppliers. We did their shelf talkers. We designed one of their cereal boxes, and I helped write as I recall, 24-page booklet called Sugar, the Essential Nutrient, that went out to some, 30 million school children, for which I am still, I'm sure, carrying around a big karmic load, big karmic debt. So Nick Kristof says, let's have a Secretary of Food, because we all eat. Only 2% of us are farmers. We don't need a Secretary of Agriculture anymore. We used to have a Secretary of Agriculture because 1 out of 3 of us used to be farmers. 35% of us were farmers when the Secretary of Agriculture was created. But now it's only 2% of us, 1 out of 50. So, but 1 out of 1 of us, or 100 out of 100 of us, eat. So let's have a Secretary of Food whose charge is to do something about the fact that we are losing more Americans every year than we lose to war, than we lose in Iraq, than we lost in Vietnam at the height of the war. We're losing more Americans every year to our food supply. And nobody wants to talk about it. Adbusters did just a brilliant ad a couple of years ago in which they point out that every time somebody gets diagnosed with cancer, and the same is true of diabetes, the same is true of all of the obesity-related diseases, and the other diseases that are associated with lousy nutrition. I mean, there's a in our geeky science segment, our third hour, we're going to be talking about how they find that people who eat blueberries and more fruit tend not to get dementia and Alzheimer's. It could be just as simple as eating fruit for breakfast. I mean, Louise brought me some fresh orange juice this morning. Thank you, Louise. But here, this is the Adbusters ad. This is just, well said here by them.
For years, economists have defined the economic health of a country by its gross domestic product. Trouble is, every time a forest falls, the GDP goes up. With every oil spill, the GDP goes up. Every time a cancer patient is diagnosed, the GDP goes up. Is this how we measure economic progress? Economists must learn to subtract.
Yeah, let's stop this crazy thing of saying, okay, if you have more people who become obese because they're eating processed foods and crap, and because we're shoving corn syrup into soft drinks that we are now selling in the cafeterias and hallways of our elementary schools because it's profitable for the schools, because the Republicans have stripped all the money, all the funding out of our schools, so the schools are trying to make an extra 50 cents here and there on a Coke. And as the consequence of this, we've got this this epidemic of obesity in the United States among our kids, which is causing 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds to be on statin drugs, which are incredibly destructive and dangerous. And they may save some lives in some regards, but let's say incredibly high in side effects. And by the way, Susan, let go a word that shouldn't go on the radio in the last segment. I want to apologize to you for that and for not catching it. It just went flying by. She was talking so fast. In fact, hopefully you missed it. But in any case, I just wanted to put that on the record. But in any case, here we have this huge industry that is driving Oprah. Oprah comes out today, or not, in the last day or two, actually. A piece in today's Daily Beast, dailybeast.com. Jessica Klein, The Great Binge, talking about how Oprah has acknowledged that she's gained 40 pounds. And she says, this is Oprah Winfrey, she says, "It seemed as if the struggle I'd had with weight my entire adult life is now officially over. I felt completely defeated. I thought, I give up, fat wins." And, the sad thing is that this could mean that she dies younger than she would otherwise. Fat cells produce estrogen. Estrogen feeds a whole bunch of different types of cancers. It messes up the metabolism of both insulin, which has to do with, sugar and diabetes and the ability of cells to repair themselves and the health of the cardiovascular system, and oddly melatonin, which regulates sleep cycles. 866-303-2270. We'll be right back.